Welcome to the Plastic Please Me Store podcast.
We are your hosts, Trey the Explainer,
And me, Miles Greb.
a podcast about the natural world,
Things that people claim are part of the natural world,
and things that used to be.
Trey, I have a question for you real quick in theme with this episode.
Okay.
I just sent you in chat this thing. Should I buy this?
Where is this? Wishbone? Okay, what Wishbone is this? My internet speeds. Wishbone Legends of Robin Hood, 1996.
This is an Emmy Award winning show.
$32.
We're going to be talking about canids today, right? And so that got me thinking about my favorite dog, and Wishbone, the dog, who is a dog who tells classic literature stories to a young suburban American boy who his life experience ends up being very relatable to classic literature. But the dog doesn't speak in real life, nor does he read in real life. But he somehow communicates these literary tropes and traditions to the young boy. And then in those stories, he plays the characters where he speaks normally. But he does not speak English in real life, only in the reenactment of the stories. And it's a very good show. And I'm
looking at the Wikipedia, and it says the adapted stories are notable for staying faithful to the source material and not toning down their subject matter like execution, suicide, murder, and the effects of slavery. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm picturing this dog telling me about plantation slavery or something like that.
What's the story, Wishbone? What's this you're dreaming of?
Also, look at the Odyssey one. The armor's, it's about on level with the new one.
Family Guy?
No, not Family Guy. What's his fucking Dark Knight director, Christopher Nolan.
Oh, Christopher Nolan. Let me see. Let me see this one.
Here, I'll send it to you.
All I can see is the armor that he's wearing. The dog's wearing. Yeah, let me see the armor. You know what? It very well might be. I'm looking at the one that the dog's wearing right now, and it very well might be more accurate. Like, let's see. Yeah, this is more accurate because this is a cuirass. This is a metal cuirass and not the cotton ones, the linothorax. Which the linothorax is what they show in the movie, I think. And Christopher Nolan, which is a later invention. Bronze cuirasses were around during the Trojan War, so that's good.
And see, this is one dog I actually want brought back. Is Wishbone? We should make a new series of Wishbone. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. Probably the real actor Wishbone is
He's
no
probably,
longer. This is
I don't want to talk. That is a sad subject. Oh my god, Trey.
Hey, everybody dies, right? Everybody gets old.
I have yet to die, so it's not clear to me that I can.
Joe, Miles, do you know what the actor dog's name is?
Wishbone.
Well, Wishbone's being played by an actor dog. His name is Soccer.
Oh, I thought it was a real dog named Wishbone.
No, his name's Soccer. That's awesome. And he's from a famous bloodline of Russell Terriers.
Oh yeah, of course he is.
His sire was Blincath Badger from Princeton, Texas.
Sounds like a Hobbit name.
Blincath, yeah, Blinkarath. What a crazy name, Badger. He got prizes and stuff. Oh my gosh, Soccer the Russell Terrier.
Well, Trey, speaking of dogs, which is why I brought this up to begin with.
Yes.
We have to talk about the canid that has returned to us from the Pleistocene era. And that, of course, is the direwolf.
That's right.
Yeah. So, for some damn reason, no one can mention this thing without mentioning Game of Thrones and Jurassic Park. So, I'm going to set up a rule. Number one, we're not going to mention Jurassic Park on this podcast. No Jurassic Park jokes. I'm not editing anything from it. It's kind of getting a little annoying to me. No one on the internet can talk about it without mentioning that book/movie. And I'm going to let you talk about Game of Thrones for like a minute 30. Let's get it out of your system.
God. I already see the thing is somebody like a Game of Thrones podcast reached out to me to talk about this story already. So I feel like I've talked about this story like 3 times already, and I'm, like, sick of it. And, like, Miles, I don't know if you know this, but George R. Martin saw my tweet. Like, I made a snarky tweet about, direwolves coming out before Winds of Winter, and
Yeah.
New York Times, Times Magazine, interviewer literally pulled up my tweet and showed it to George during an interview, and George got upset about it. He's like, "They're not connected. People are so rude." So
Well,
so
that
I
is amazing news. I'm very glad to hear that, actually,
he, like, read it word for word, and I was like, "Oh, no, that's me. That's me."
because you got to understand that I'm not a Game of Thrones fan, and I don't
Yeah.
super like the guy, to be honest.
You don't
Because
like George R. R. Martin?
well, he said what's his face would beat Aragorn in a fight,
Oh,
and
okay. The
and I'm a
attacks
Tolkien guy.
policy.
Yeah, and I find these comments annoying. I'm a Frank Herbert Tolkien guy.
Okay.
I'm on that side. I have not watched the show. I don't even like when people refer to it as a show. It's a damn book series. Like I've only read the first book. I read it like when it came out, like wow, it was like 25
In
years
the
ago, whatever.
90s? Yeah,
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 like
2000s.
yeah, I read it and I was like, that's fine. A little cynical for my taste. Some people like it. That's cool. I didn't read the rest, so I'm ignorant. But I just
He I like him as a writer, like, I think he's got good prose. Because like, I'm one of the few Game of Thrones fans that have read his other work. So, like, I can call myself not like a Game of Thrones fan, but like a George R. R. Martin fan. And yeah, he's got good prose, and I don't know, he's good at writing, and he's very good at being a short story writer, and having, like, a twist, like Twilight Zone kinda twist. Yeah, but, I'm kind of falling into the thing where, like, yeah, George R. R. Martin, he is kind of a little annoying
Yeah,
in
so
certain
my
things.
take on the reason why he hasn't finished this thing is actually because the kind of like storytelling weight of the story is about subverting expectations and destructions of tropes. And
Mhm.
so there is nothing like pregnant in the story to birth an ending. Like everything, like it can't come to a satisfactory conclusion. Because the kind of the
Yeah,
point is that the satisfactory things don't happen, right?
yes.
So how
And
do you end
that's
that?
his that's how he writes, and basically everything before Game of Thrones is, like, he never has, like, this epic climactic battle at the end. Like, his endings are
Yeah,
very, like, lukewarm, kind of, like, bittersweet, like, pathetic. Like, his endings are
yeah,
pathetic, but they're pathetic in a way that makes sense and stuff. So, like, you're right that, like, people have misunderstood what type of writer he is, I think. And also, like, I think he just doesn't know how to wrap things up. Like, he's expanded the story more and more and more and made all these loose ends that he has to tie up, and he doesn't know how to finish everything. And I think that's it. And
yeah.
also, I think he just doesn't want to finish it. Like, I think he just kind of hates it at this point. Like, in the interview that he referenced my tweet, like, you can tell that he's just, like, tired and just doesn't want to hear about Winds of Winter anymore. That's besides the point. All right, let's
Okay,
talk about.
I gave you time to talk
You gave
about
me
the shit
return to
I don't care about. So now, no more Jurassic Park, no more fucking Game of Thrones. Okay, Colossal,
Colossal. We already
Colossal.
talked about Colossal last episode.
We've talked about Colossal a few times, not in super depth.
Yeah.
Um, Basically, they are a company set up to try to de-extinct animals, which is something we've talked about in the show a few like half dozen times or something like that.
Mhm.
I generally support trying to do so. Then people who say that always have to do the I call it the millennial firewall, where you bring up all the obvious objections. Like, obviously, I care about doing it ethically, et cetera, right? But in general, I support the attempt because I believe it's good for science to do big, powerful things to get people's respect. I also think um, it's an important technology ecologically, perhaps to learn. Um, However, the headline comes out that something was de-extincted, and we're not that happy. What you
The
might think we would be. So what
the
happened, Trey?
magazine, the Time magazine article has a picture of a wolf on it and a line crossing out extinct. So they de-extincted the dire wolf.
Well, it is
It
hard
says
to argue with that.
the title is what is the title is the return of the dire wolf. That it's back, baby. it's back, and it blew up over Twitter. I saw people going like I saw one tagline that kind of pissed me off. That was like, this is the first time we've heard a howl, this howl in 10,000 years or something like that. And it was like a video of the
Yeah,
little
that's
pup
one of
going,
their videos.
"Woo," and you're like, oh, you're like, that's I've already oh gosh, I've like talked about this story so much that like I've kind of grown to dislike it.
Okay,
um
so for
yeah.
people that haven't followed it, just listen to this one. What
Yeah,
is
people who've
Colossal?
lived under a rock. People that have been under a rock for the past, like, 2 weeks. What is Colossal? Okay,
Yeah.
Colossal is a, bioscience company. It's kinda like a think tank kinda thing. Like, it's getting funding, and it funds a whole bunch of geneticists who are working on, like, several different projects, like,
Hmm.
the woolly mouse thing, the woolly
Yep.
mice thing. According to Dr. Beth Shapiro and the video that I watched with her, they're doing stuff with like a lot of endangered species, but that's not as sexy. That's not as sexy, so it doesn't make the headlines. Like they made stuff with quoll, which is like an Australian marsupial that's kind of
Yeah.
endangered.
Sometimes mistaken for the thylacine.
Sometimes mistaken for the thylacine. I think Australians call it a cat or something. Like I was like, what? Um, yeah, and like so they do a lot of some stuff with red wolves and yeah, it's like they do like it's like basically I think how I kind of understand it, it's a company that acquires funding just to go everywhere, to go to just like any random geneticist based around the world. Like from what it sounds like, it's not like um a very firm, like I don't know, it seems very like we're funding this person's research at this university, we're funding this person's research at this place and this place, which is how it kind of works in genetics. Because I've worked at a lab that is similar to this, where it quote unquote contributed, like fed into the Chickenosaurus project, and it was based out of a professor's lab at the university I was at, and it received funding from the Chickenosaurus project and stuff. Even though it's very like he doesn't like work for them or anything like that. Technically, like he's not part of the company. I guess I don't know. That's how I understood Colossal. I might be wrong.
Hmm.
That it's very decentralized biosciences. That it's basically just funding tons and tons of different projects, and it gets backers. George R. Martin's apparently an investor. Forrest Gallant is an
Forrest
investor.
Gallant, our
Yeah.
enemy,
I say begrudgingly, Forrest Gallant apparently is an investor. Like, and
he
I
is a big influencer for them. He promotes them for free a lot on YouTube. So
yeah, and George R. Martin in his blog post described himself as like cultural advisor or something like that on the direwolf project. Like it
that's
said
awesome.
like investor and colossal cultural advisor, and I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? That's like a producer credit, you know, like how like in TV shows or something or movies, some people would get like a producer
Yeah.
credit when they did like absolutely nothing on it. Like I think that's what they did. Like what? Because okay, here's the thing. George R. Martin. Okay, all right. Dire wolves. What are dire wolves? Um,
Well,
what
that's a good,
people,
actually, an interesting question.
yeah, yeah, and this feeds into the discussion later, I guess too. Dire wolves. Okay, people have this idea of dire wolves from Game of
You're
Thrones.
not allowed to mention it.
Well, I have to, because I have to. Okay, I'm mentioning it just to dispel a myth. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
um, because Game of Thrones has made this idea, because George R. R. Martin doesn't know paleontology, and he's not a paleontologist. He knows more than the average person, I get, but he's not like an expert on it or anything. So when he was writing his books, uh, learned about direwolves. Direwolves are a real prehistoric creature that existed maybe like 10,000 years in the last ice age, um, in
Yeah.
North
So
America.
yes, and so I did a lot of research on direwolves when I was writing Clovis because I have a whole section like where it just cuts away from the main characters with them. Like when I first learned about it, it was from D&D, not Game of Thrones. So I always think it's funny when people think of Game of Thrones because I'm like, no, man, they're druids summon them, you know.
Yeah,
But regardless of that, like the normal conception is like this tundra-bound large wolf, right? Like this
yeah.
white furred,
An oversized wolf, like a wolf that's, like, giant, like the size
yeah.
of, like, like a horse. I don't know. I'm thinking of a Game of Thrones where they're like horse sized or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
But actually, direwolves lived in more like shrub and arid type regions, right? Like a lot of
Mhm.
the ones we have are from the tar pits, of course, in LA, right?
Right.
And that region was not that dissimilar to how it is now, in the Pleistocene
It was
15,
dry.
20,
It was probably even
30,000 years
drier
ago.
back then. It's probably
Yeah.
drier than back then than even
It
now.
it almost certainly was drier, and it was still kind of arid, shrubby. Like it's green, good springs and stuff. It's not like a desert, but kind
Mm.
of like what it is now. If you go out for like 45 minutes from LA, like it looks like that. So like, they most likely didn't have this white kind of fur, right? Because that would not be a great adaptation strategy for that environment. So this
Yes.
this gigantic white wolf thing is probably a pop culture icon or a misunderstanding of trying to scale up like the Yukon, like northern Minnesota wolves that, the people that were in North America 12,000 years ago or white settlers would have seen 400 or 500 years ago, you know?
Right.
Like, but that's not probably like morphologically what this creature looked like.
Right. You're right that it's a pop culture thing, like where like even let's like if you even look at like a red wolf, like the wolves that kind of
Mhm.
live like in the southern part of America, or at least used to, they don't look like the big fluffy northern wolves either. And you're right that like their coloration would probably be closer to red wolf maybe. Um yeah, yeah, and you're right that, like, it's like, the Mankilian Bembe kinda thing where people, like, have this pop culture idea of how a dinosaur or something should look like, and that's not what they look like. Like a Velociraptor. Oh my gosh, Velociraptor is such a good example. Like, where Velociraptor looks nothing like what the average person would think of as a Velociraptor. Um, but, like, if a Jurassic Park movie shows that, then, like, you're like, "Oh, shoot, I shouldn't
Not a,
bring up Jurassic Park. Fuck.
you.
Fuck.
There's rules, Trey.
There's rules. Well, I'm just saying that, like, yeah, like, okay, direwolf, like, the
Yeah.
pop culture idea of a direwolf is probably not what an actual direwolf looked like. Um, and that goes back into this where the direwolf resurrection project, the direwolf looks like how they look like in pop culture. What do
Yeah.
you think? How did that happen?
So
Whoa.
so what they did is
Yeah.
is Colossal has funded some research on direwolves before this, right? Like it is not like they just did what they did um, out of nowhere. They've been funding research on like um, taxonomy, genetic history, and stuff of direwolves for a while. They published some stuff on it like 4 years ago. So like Colossal does do legitimate science. So
Mhm.
like Colossal is not just all bad nonsense, right? So I don't want to
Yeah.
get that out there.
And
Um,
legitimate science and, like, what they did here was legitimately interesting science, it's just not what they claim it
yeah.
was,
And
and
in
it's a
case anybody
shame.
isn't following the news, just to clear it up, okay, we're kind of jumping over because we assume people listening, have at least the gist of this. They have brought three, what they're calling direwolves, which are these
Mhm.
gray wolves that have had basically hybridized, resequenced or inserted, depending on how you want to describe it, direwolf DNA added
No,
to them.
it's not inserted, no, nothing was added. There's
No, it's
no
it's
added
it's, it's
direwolf.
like hybridized, so like basically like kind of restructured to be similar to.
Yeah,
We, we'll, we'll
it's
we'll talk about the semantics of this.
they're gene edited, like, I
Yeah,
that's where people get wrong is that, like,
yeah,
nothing was inserted into them or anything like
yeah.
that.
This is the
They're not
specifics.
transgenetic or anything,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's correct. Yeah, they're not trying to. We'll have to describe this more in a little bit, but basically, through the method, there have been not inserted genes, but um, replicated sequences which are similar to known direwolf genes that have been rebuilt in some parts of this genome into these gray wolves, and they've successfully birthed three, Romulus and Remus, and which are the two males, and there was a girl. What was her name? Uh,
Khaleesi, 'cause of Game of
Khaleesi.
Thrones, of
Well,
course.
yes, yeah, okay, yeah. Anyway, um,
Yeah.
and so these are very white um, pups. They have the slightly larger ears and head shape that direwolves have. If you look at the skeleton of gray wolves versus direwolves, the main thing you'll probably notice, other than the direwolves are slightly larger, is that they have the kind of a bigger head shape, right? Like a
Mhm.
bit thicker, wider jaw. We assume this is an adaptation because these are pursuit pack predators. They would chase down prey, be they Megatherium or the yaks or the horses that were in America at the time, whatever, the camels, which are in America at the time, that they were chasing down. They grab them, they have to tug them. These are larger mammals, so they need more force. So that's why they had that. And these animals have maybe not to the extent, but they have a bit larger structure to them.
Hmm.
One thing that's important to note is like, not to be morbid, but we haven't seen the skeleton of these animals, right? So like we're just seeing them with flesh and fur on them. We haven't seen that with the direwolves. So
Yeah.
like an actual taxonomical comparison would need to be skeletal to skeletal, which
Right.
which they're not giving that information. We don't have X-rays of these. They're not providing this information to us.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, they have not published a paper on this, right? This
They
has
have
changed
not.
in the
They
last
have
couple of days.
not.
Okay, yeah.
They have not published paper. They still haven't peer reviewed. They have a paper available for the woolly mice, but they have not. It has
Yeah,
not gone through peer review.
yeah.
Last time I checked, and this is one of those things that Colossal has done seemingly a couple times now, and that it's a kind of it's a little unprofessional because they're making these big claims, and nobody can really fact check them. They're going to the press first, and the only reason you would really do that is for money. Like you're only going to the press first because of money. If like you care about the actual research, you like wait and have things go to peer review, so you're not making a mistake. You actually did, to prove that you actually did what you did. This is pretty standard stuff in science. It's not really surprising. um Beth Shapiro, Dr. Beth Shapiro is one of the scientists that worked on it, maybe one of the lead ones, and they had her like on the Colossal Twitter account. Like I think like they saw all the flack that their story was getting, and so like, okay, get Beth Shapiro, go on there and talk. And what did she say? She blamed it that Time magazine broke the embargo and published to the press before peer review. And she's like, the New Yorker, she says the New Yorker broke the embargo. And in an ideal world, this would have been posted at the same time as the announcement that our paper being submitted for peer review.
Can I say
But
I
that's
think
I
that
think
they
that's kind of bull, because we know that George R. Martin was going to post about the direwolf story the day before the Time magazine thing. Like Time magazine broke the embargo a day early, but George R. Martin was going to post about it the day after. He explicitly had a blog post about it. So like they were going to post the story to the press before the paper anyways. Like this is not like they were not going to wait for peer review. This is not like time. They blame Time magazine, but it's really not. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I think I don't know this, of course. I think that's what they told her.
Yeah, they
Like,
probably did. That's the thing is, that I would recommend anybody watch that Beth Shapiro. It's on their Twitter. Beth Shapiro, she's a great scientist. She was actually part of my scholarship program. Went to my same university. Like I talked to her husband. Her husband was visiting the university and like offered me a job. But yeah, she's great, and she wrote that book on like cloning the mammoth, resurrecting the mammoth thing. All good science. She does good science, and her interview with like her like talking, kind of explaining what they did, shows just like how like there's this huge disconnect between the Colossal CEO president and then their media, the press side, the media side, and then what the scientists are actually doing. Like there's this big disconnect between the two of them. Um,
yeah,
like
because
where it seems like they're just throwing money. Like scientists, do what you do. Okay, I don't care how you do it, just do it. Bring back the direwolf. Yeah, sure. Um,
yeah, so because I mean, the way that they're using CRISPR and all this stuff is legitimate. Like, obviously, this works, right? They
yeah,
understand it. These are actual functional scientists. Like, this is a respected person. Like, a lot of people know her. Um, I think what has happened is these billionaires and stuff who are running this, like Ben Lamb, they think this stuff is really cool, right?
yeah,
And they want to do it. And that's not the worst thing in the world. I know that like tech bro culture has grown, just to be clear, in our country into this kind of like anti-democratic fascist techno state that believes that their entrepreneurial goals are much more effective than liberal democratic government and is trying to usurp it. And we do live in that moment in history, and we should be honest about that. So people who are rational are extremely skeptical of this kind of entrepreneurship right now, and I think that that's very legitimate. But there is nothing inherently bad about a rich guy being like, I want to fund this cool biological research because it might not be profitable for a while. And so, like, it'd be hard for a university or government to fund it, right? Like,
Mm.
that's not inherently bad. Um, I think what is happening, and other than the political culture, that makes like a lot of us kind of like science and skeptic people kind of like raise our eyebrows a lot on this stuff. Is what's happening is if you go to their website, it's extremely flashy, and you click on species they're working with, right? Like they're like, we're going to try to de-extinct the woolly mammoth, the Tasmanian tiger, the dodo, and the direwolf, right? Like that's what they first bring up. It's for very famous,
Yeah.
charismatic large animals,
It's not
and
like something obscure that died like within the past, like I guess the thylacines a recent extinction. But you're right that they're going for the sexy ones, you know.
yeah, and
Uh,
like they got to make money or you can't do the research. So like I'm not
right.
saying you can't do a couple that are big. Maybe a direwolf is a reasonable one to do. We have good preserved stuff because we got the tar pits, and they have that tooth found in Ohio that's only like 7,000 years old or something, maybe 7 to 9,000 years old. Um, that has DNA in it, so that's good. They got good samples, so I get it. You got to make money, and that's legit too. But like, it's all the flash. The
Yeah.
flash is everything they present,
Yeah.
and you know, a few years ago when I was doing the March for Science and like setting that up, I gave a talk to a bunch of scientists, and I mentioned that like narrative is the enemy of science, and a lot of people like kind of criticized me when I said that because they're like, "Oh no, we got to use narrative to tell science stories. That's how we communicate to the public." Blah blah blah. And I was like, "No, what I'm saying is when you have a cool story you want to tell, there is like a weight to tell the story more than there is a weight to tell the truth, right?"
Mhm.
And it's always very dangerous when you try to do that because scientists need to come out and say, "Hey, dire wolves are a kind of canid that branched off from actually African dogs, probably more than like the dogs we see as like New World or Old World dogs, right?" And
Yeah, there's a lot of debate on like what they're closest related to. And according to them, this paper that has not been published or peer reviewed, they like have solved that. Like they've figured that out with their genetic study.
well, I'd love to
That
see that.
Right. And this is the thing. This gets into like where like why did they make them white? You know, why did they make the direwolves white when we don't know that? And according to them too, they're like, oh well, in the direwolf genome that we looked at, there's these three pigment genes that may have contributed to fur coat color. Light fur coat color, by the way. That's not, and they have to admit that it's not white. And the thing is those three genes that are in the direwolf that contribute to the light fur coat color. If they altered those same genes in gray wolves and the gray wolves that they were editing, it would cause blindness and deafness. So the team decided to edit two completely different genes to produce the light fur coat color in the colossal gray direwolves. So it's different genes. These are not the same genes that they're editing. They're editing completely different genes for this superficial look that they want to match apparently, which according
Yeah,
to them
that
is in direwolves.
that they wanted an ad because of an HBO adaptation of a show. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, because yeah, it's
it,
like, well, we wanna make them look like the pop culture idea of direwolves. Because if they don't, then they're not gonna look like direwolves. People are gonna be
there
like, "What?"
obviously are people there that know a lot more about direwolves than I do. I researched them quite a bit 4 years ago, like when I wrote Clovis, and I tried to make the ones in Clovis look as accurately as I possibly could based on the science I understood at the time. You know, I am like so a little bit out of date on my research, but like I said, like um, what I understood this is a paper actually cited by Colossal like 4 years ago. So like if they have new information, they need to fucking publish this. You can't just say these things. That like they're probably at least equally related as to jackals, right? So
Yes.
like
The Colossal will admit that, like, even
yeah.
by their standards, they admit that jackals and gray wolves are equally closely related to direwolves. Like, gray wolves, there's really no reason to choose gray wolves, other
Well,
than I
the
don't know,
reason is they
look
believe
cool. Yeah.
that species is a very fuzzy term, which we agree with, right? I think everybody agrees. Like taxonomy, specification, like all these things are pretty kind of nebulous, but we do try, right? Like how would you define species? It's not easy.
Yeah. It's
Like
like it depends on the scientist that you're talking to.
yeah,
It's
right, and
like
kind of the field, right?
can
Like
you have viable offspring
yeah, that's
from
like
two
what you write
individuals?
kind of in high school, but like when you're like in college, it's more complicated
It's a little
answer,
bit
you
more
know?
complicated. We're like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. There's like the famous one where it's that salamander species that's like um around a mountain chain, and like
Hmm.
salamander next to this one can mate with this one, and then that one can mate to the neighboring ones, but the ones on opposite sides can't interbreed. So like where is the line with what's the
Yeah.
different species in there? Yeah, where they can have this hybridizing events. Yeah, it is very complicated. And yes, and so Colossal has taken this very strange idea of de-extinction, and then like this different idea of definition of species. They started using a definition of de-extinction that I've never heard before. Um, like what is the? Let me see what they say. Yes, okay, all right. They've really stretched the definition of de-extinction. This is what Beth Shapiro says. She says the process of creating an organism that resembles an extinct species. um, so yes, the process of creating an organism that resembles an extinct species. So it's all superficial according to their definition of de-extinction. And okay, they say that's not our definition, that's somebody else's. But like I've never heard the definition before, and I feel like they're only kind of they search for like anything to fit that definition, so like what they can say what they did was a de-extinction. Um, and other scientists, other geneticists, especially like there's a paleogeneticist, Nick Rawlins, and then Jeremy Austin. He's the director of the Australian Center for Ancient DNA. Both of them very strongly disagree that this is a resurrected species or anything. Yeah, like Jeremy Austin says that the genetically modified animals are not a direwolf under any definition of a species ever. And then the other guy is says that like so the company only made 20 edits to 14 genes, which is really impressive by CRISPR genetic standards. But to consider like it a direwolf from 14 gene edits, some of them not even the same genes, because to keep in mind, remember
Yeah.
two of those are not the same genes in the direwolf.
Because the
They
woolly mouse was like 7 or 8, right? So it's
yeah,
like a step up from that.
this is a step up, like
Yeah.
a slight step up, and I think it's the record for how many edits in a like a living organism. So that's the thing, is that's the hard thing about this is they've done good, interesting stuff. Um, they just didn't really do what they claim they did. Like they can only really claim it's a de-extinction if they really stretch the definition. Yeah, because yeah, that's what they did. So what they did, yeah, to explain it to people just real quick, is what they did is they examined some samples of the direwolf genome from fossils or from surviving specimens, and compared some of the differences in the direwolf genome with gray wolves, and then edited 14 genes already in gray wolves. So they share the same genes, but they edited them to be the variants in the direwolf. So like like how like yeah, so like they changed the variant. So they switched it on. Basically switched it on to a different variant, um, somewhat, because some of those they
Hmm.
were unable to edit the genes. So three of them, like they couldn't edit that in the gray wolf, because it would cause blindness and deafness and maybe make the embryo not viable. So yeah, they're like I think it would be more accurate to call these dire wolf imitations, dire wolf mimic. Like they're gray wolves that have been edited with dire wolf to have dire wolf traits. Nothing more. There's nothing's been inserted. These are all genes that were already in them, and they just flipped.
Hmm.
Yeah, it like trying to explain it's like complicated because people don't want to hear that. Where it's like, no, this is a gray wolf. It's just like I guess it's like if those mice, okay, those mice that they genetically modified, you know, the woolly mice. Would you consider that a new species, or would you just be like, that's just a mice with long hair?
Yeah. See, so this gets to what they were saying.
Yeah,
Like one of the lead scientists, they said that when we talk about species, we don't care about genetics. Genetics isn't the thing that people actually are referring to. It isn't what they mean specifically. It's not the thing they look at and say that's a new species. The thing they look at is taxonomy, behavior, and morphology, right? Which, to be fair, is true since genetics is what, like 200 years old at the most?
yeah,
like proto, and then like people understood it like better like 100 years ago. So like, yeah, I guess that's true. For a long time, we didn't have the degree of understanding to say these genetic groupings are species, and when it gets over here, they're not. Fair enough. But for a long time, species was just morphology, right? Like
Yeah.
it looks like that these are the same group. And then we get to taxonomy, it's like, oh, we can tell by their bones that they actually diverged, whenever they diverged. But the thing is, like, that's kind of true. It's kind of like a common sense argument. Like, yeah, it looks like that, so it is that, and that makes sense to a degree. But like, we're just beyond that now, and I think that
Yeah.
that's kind of like a good hand wavy kind of Joe Rogan makes sense kind of argument. Like the thing
Yeah.
is, we actually know genetics now, so yeah, species it's got more complicated, and it kind of sucks that what a species has got more complicated because it is kind of hard to define. But so fucking what? Like
Yeah.
reality doesn't need to be accurately described for it to be what it is.
Yeah.
Um,
Like, yeah,
so
I'm kind of like I reject the question. I reject like
yeah,
with when they get hung up about the species thing, where you're right that like it doesn't really matter. Like, this is not a direwolf by any meaningful, this is not a direwolf in any meaningful way. I guess is what I'm
yeah.
trying to
So
like.
the thing is, direwolves had a certain instinct, a certain behavior, a certain niche, a certain look to them. They had a certain genetic history, a certain
Mhm.
evolutionary history, a bone structure, etc., etc. Right?
And it's in a
Thing is,
distinct genetic signature from these colossal wolves too.
yeah,
More than just 20 edits. Like there's
yeah,
probably hundreds of different differences between direwolves and gray wolves genetically.
yeah. Well, they mentioned this 99.5% thing, but that's like the 5% is fucking massive, man.
Yeah, it's amazing because
Like,
DNA is a huge. There's tons of differences in DNA, and there's like non-coding sections, and non-coding sections do stuff. People, this is
yeah,
a
like
yeah.
like
Epigenetic
0.5%
stuff.
is literally like 20 plus million differences.
Yeah,
Right. That's like literally what that 5% is. Like I could do the math, but like that it's around that number. And like that's it's insane. So like I can kind of get like let's think of it not like a an animal because an animal has all these instincts and blah 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 blah. Well, it's just like a tree and is a redwood tree. And there's whatever chemical process, whatever chemical it is that makes the red in the redwood, right? Like so
mhm.
we lose the redwood tree, you get a pine tree and like oh we can make it so when it grows it sucks that whatever. I don't know enough about trees, but you get what I'm saying. The
Yeah,
chemical
yeah,
out of the ground, so like it makes that chemical compound in, and when it grows and it's in it, and it's fucking red, and it's the
yeah.
same basically color red as a redwood tree. Yeah, okay, you kind of made a redwood tree. It's I get it, I get what you're saying, but like there are other things about the redwood tree that made it the redwood tree.
Right.
It's
There's
not just that.
more things than them being light colored and different and light colored by different genes. Apparently, like
Yeah,
like
and
it's more
specifically
good than
in this
that.
scenario, we can compare the redwood tree to the pine tree. Right?
Mhm.
We actually don't have a direwolf to compare this to the direwolf.
Right. We can
Right?
we don't know what the life appearance of a
Yeah.
direwolf. Even
We got
even the genetics, like the inferences looking at
mhm,
those pigment genes are inferences. We don't know. We
yeah.
like some like you can't know just how a direwolf would look in the flesh. That's gone forever now.
So
No.
what you can say is we took gray wolves and we tried to make them look more like how
Like
we think
bears.
gray wolves might look by
Yeah.
taking some information that we got from dire wolves, uh, taking some of our expectations, and we did some legit science, which was pretty impressive, to
Yeah.
kind of model them to like visually look like that because we thought it would be cool. You know,
Yeah.
that's like if you think that's legitimate or not, that's like not nothing scientifically, right?
Yeah, that's
So
cool science, and it's just not
I,
what it's
but
not what they
I
claim they
I
did.
can totally imagine that you would treat those animals well, and it wouldn't hurt them to have a different hair. I mean, look how many kind of weird fucking dogs there are. You
Right,
know,
yeah, yeah.
like French
And if you have,
bulldogs
like,
probably have.
bulldog yeah, and pugs and stuff,
That's what
yeah,
I'm saying.
yeah.
Like pugs and French bulldogs probably have a worse time breathing, um, than other dogs, and like that degree of suffering, people are kind of okay with.
Yeah,
So like I doubt these dogs are hurting any more than a French bulldog. That's what I'm
yeah.
saying. I assume that I could be wrong, but like so I'm not actually that concerned about the ethics of it. And I'm very pro GMO, and I'm very pro getting genetic power. Obviously, people will probably use it for bad one day, and I get that. Uh, but like I don't know how to deal with the bad guys right now. I'm kind of overwhelmed with trying to figure out how to deal with the bad guys. So I don't
Well,
really know how to answer that part of the
you could
question.
try to use, like, nuclear power for bad too,
Yeah, yeah. I
there's
mean,
good
it's
stuff
fucking
and
use
bad
plastics
stuff.
for bad. I don't know what to tell
Yeah.
you. Like it fucking sucks. I'm sorry about the bad guys. Um, you know, you can use punching for good or bad, right? Like people punch Batman back, he punches it back. It's that's technology, you know. Um, but like I have no problem with de-extinction philosophically, and Colossal is going to do good things.
Yes.
And like one of the contentions people often say, why do this flashy pop culture thing? Why try to de-extinct something and not help things alive? But that's actually illegitimate because they are actually doing that, right?
Right. Like, okay, the direwolf thing, they admit this. They admit this in the article. The direwolf thing is basically just a showpiece.
Yeah,
They're never going to release these into the wild. They're not going to try to make a population in the
yeah,
ecosystem
they have a
or anything.
sanctuary of them. So
They have a sanctuary, and they're
yeah,
gonna die in captivity of old age, eating nice steak and stuff. Like they're gonna have a cushy life. And they went to great lengths to flesh that out in the article.
yeah. So unless you're
Um,
anti-zoo, you're probably okay with that, you know?
yeah. Yeah, and so the thing that, like, is more, I think, um, more, like, interesting or more, valuable is the stuff that they're talking about doing with endangered species, like, they're trying to they're working on a vaccine for Asian elephants and, gene editing quolls to be resistant to cane toad toxins, like, stuff that will legitimately help the ecosystems in real life, like cane toads, for instance, are an invasive species in Australia, and
Yeah, there's
a
so
lot of
many of them, we can't really kill them.
you can't
So
kill them. And the thing is cane toads, it's stuff that tries to eat them will die from the toxins. So editing a quoll to have a gene apparently resistant to their toxins could actually keep them in check in the ecosystem, um, which
which
is
is good.
good.
It's like what
Yeah,
we're trying to do with the GMO bananas in Africa because there's a blight, you
yeah,
know, or the chestnuts, like the American chestnut. You know, fucking chestnuts roasting on open fire. Those fucking chestnuts, those trees die. If you try to grow the trees now, they die of a blight. Like
damn,
you can't even fucking grow them.
yeah,
So it takes this power to save those things, and
yeah,
that's good. Like, like then we get to this whole thing, Trey, where people always like, "Oh, do we have the right to do this? Is it ethical to is it ethical to bring them back because humans extinction them, or is extinction bad or good?" You know, the thing is, extinctions have nothing to do with humanity.
yeah,
Extinctions is the natural part of fucking physics. Animals only exist because of physics. Plant life exists because of physics. It's just physics over fucking time. Complex molecules, they come in and go. Most life that ever existed is gone. There's way
mm,
more extinct things than there are things that are living. Nothing has a right to exist. It's not good or bad that anything exists. There's no souls. There's no heaven or hell. You know, like fucking things come and go, man.
yeah,
Human beings were going to extinct things by being successfully adapted to their environments, right? If we never invented technology, we were going to kill things just as any animal that becomes successful in their niche spreads out. This has happened for every predator and every successful creature in the sea and the land and the marshes and the trees, right? This is just life. However, in this weird fucking process that got us our consciousness, we started to develop a new novel thing called noticing cuteness, you know? And it's fucking valid. It's very valid, and I feel it. And I love the animals, and I love the trees. And you know, in our behavior, yeah, we've killed a lot of things. Some by accident, introducing rats or whatever. Maybe the rats should get a little blame for that, though, right? No one's fucking like, hey, rats, fuck you. Like,
yeah.
we didn't tell the rats to come on the ship, right? They were not invited. They were not told to get off the ship. They go and eat a bunch of like insect eggs or bird eggs and extinct them. Then it's like, hey, fuck humans. I'm like, hey, man, what? I mean, sure, you know, I'll take some of the blame, but the rat gets zero fucking blame. Zero. That's
I'm
bullshit, Trey.
with talking about like what responsibility or whatever humans have, because that's what I think some people like in Colossal. I think Beth Shapiro brought this up that like we
Yeah.
have kind of a responsibility, um, that it is important for ecosystems to have balance. Like I think that's good. Ecosystem have balance, um, and for
Balance
things.
is also just a perspective. If you pull back out farther enough on an ecosystem, it looks like it. Like if you pull in, it looks like they have balance. But if you pull out, they're always spinning out of balance. That's how
This is
evolution
true.
works.
This is
That's why
true,
there's
and
new
you're right
animals.
that, like, yeah, yeah, and it's an arms race, you're right. I just
Yeah,
think of, like, yeah, with genetics, it's like a tool. It's a tool in the same way, like, introducing new species to an area is a tool, like, I don't know, I think of kudzu and how shitty kudzu is here and how I have to live with kudzu now because a guy from, Georgia was like, "Let's just bring kudzu here. It's gonna help with the soil erosion," and now kudzu here is here to stay for the
for
next
fucking ever.
million years. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna have kudzu forever, and it's just devouring our
We can
forests and
cause
stuff.
all the global warming we want. We ain't getting rid of that sons of bitches. Kudzu ain't go fucking nowhere.
So it's and you can do good things, you do bad things, like yeah, it's all it's
Yeah,
and you're right that it depends on how you define it and stuff.
and don't get me wrong. There's a real study to ecology and the balance of nature and all this stuff, and it matters. And you introduce an animal or a plant or an insect to an ecosystem, and it can throw it out of whack rapidly. And
Mm.
humans have a lot of power. Obviously, there's a million stories, right? Like we talk about it all the time. Everybody here listening knows to like destroy these ecosystems very quickly. My only point is that every ecosystem that exists replaced the one that was there before, and hell shit went extinct. And
And
this
y
is
and you're
happening
right
way
that, like,
before us.
what humans are doing is kinda just fast tracking what a lot what it takes continents colliding, like
We're a force multiplier.
rats making it to New Zealand or something like that who knows? That might have happened naturally, because of, like, a wind blew stuff across the ocean like a hurricane or a typhoon. Because like, that's how N New World monkeys got in South America, is like just a random, probably freak event in nature blew something across an ocean and transplanted them there, and they probably, outcompeted something that was there already, like, we're just
Yeah,
kind of fast
we
tracking it.
outcompeted the other hominids, and some of them are even in us still.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like I don't know. That's just nature. Nature doesn't. Nature isn't about balance. Nature isn't about caring about other things. I mean, caring is an adapted evolutionary pack strategy and social strategy, and it has a lot of good. And we've developed philosophy over the years, and it tells us that it actually benefits us, and that's great. Sounds great. I love that caring is evolutionary useful. Um, I'm just saying, like one of my favorite movies ever is Nausicaa and the Valley of Wind, right? Miyazaki's first feature film. And as much as I love that movie, like there's this whole ecology that points up in the poison world, right? Like the world is poisoned and fucked because of ecological disaster. And they have this
Mm.
massive ecology of all these like monstery things and like poison forests. And it seems so bad because it's like alien to humans and it's no longer good for us. But I'm like, they actually have an extremely diverse ecosystem. Like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just like bad because it's not good for us, right? So
Yeah.
all of a sudden, that's bad. So like, the caring about the ecology is a very human thing,
Yeah.
for good or bad. And again, like I care a lot about global warming and ecology. I just want to try to step back and remember that these are all like human-made feelings, is all. So,
Mm.
but anyways, that's kind of a sideways rant. But my point is, what Colossal did was try to define into existence a direwolf. Um,
Yes. That's
I,
a
I
oh, Miles, that's such a good way to phrase that. Yes, define into existence a direwolf. Yes.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
very good.
You can tell that because they're playing with language, right? Like when
Yeah.
anyone tries to like change the presuppositions for what everybody agrees with, that's what they're trying to do. It's a rhetorical trick. Like
Yeah.
they basically did a good science thing. They did something that's maybe useful. They did something that's maybe fun, and it's probably ethical. I'll give them probably. It's probably okay. Maybe not.
Mhm.
But and then they were disingenuous about it. They didn't publish their paper. They went right to the press. They went right to pop culture, and then
Little
they were kind of
sleazy.
being snug about it,
Yeah.
and that
You
pissed
you
off a lot of people. So.
you're right, the simple fact that they have to whip out, like, this dictionary and, like, pull up this obscure definition of de-extinction, speaks volumes in and of itself. Like, the fact they felt the need to do that it just speaks about the project, like that like, yeah, I think even at a certain level, they understand what they did wasn't de-extinction either.
Well, yeah,
Um,
and they're like, "Oh, well, if it morphologically looks the same and it fills the same niche, isn't it a gray wolf?" I'm like, "Well, what fucking niche? Like the gray wolf filled the niche of killing animals that had fucking 400 tons of meat on them, 400
yeah.
pounds of meat on them, running
Dire
around."
dire wolves have been extinct for almost 10,000 years, just about 9,000 years, something like
Yeah,
that.
something like
And
that
so
around that. Yeah,
the ecosystem they inhabited is gone. Like, there's no mammoths, there's no camels, there are horses now, there are horses, but they're back, they're different horses.
yeah,
Their
we are
ecosystem.
bringing that horseback though a little bit. Remember,
The
we had the
Przewalski's horse? Oh,
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
Like, the thing is, like, yeah, the world that dire wolves inhabited and the ecosystem they were a part of is just gone, and it's gone in a way that the thylacine or whatever, like, this is what people talk about with, like, mammoths, like, yeah, like, the whole ecosystem that mammoths inhabited is gone. Like, I've heard they're trying to talk to bring it back with Pleistocene Park or something. But that's kind of like a
Yeah,
pipe dream in my
and
opinion.
that's perhaps legitimate. Like, it seems a little bit like the magical Christmas idea, the whole
Yeah.
mammoth stomping down the permafrost. It doesn't seem like nonsense to me. Give it a go, I guess, if I'm pressing a button. But I don't know. Good luck. Um,
I think even case scenario, like okay, let's say because Colossal, the next thing they want to do is Mammoth, obviously, and
sure.
Beth Shapiro wrote about this in her book, and I think she admitted this in the article is that like yeah, like the only way to really make a mammoth is kind of to make it in the same way they quote unquote made the direwolf, like that it's going to take an elephant and they're going to not splice in, they're going to edit genes in elephants to make them have longer hair and stuff, but they're not going to really be a mammoth in any I think meaningful
Yeah,
way.
and and
And
and,
they're going to
and
stay in
mammoths.
captivity forever. Like I don't think they're going to release that into the wild or anything because it still has the
Yeah,
instincts of an Asian elephant and stuff.
yeah. So what's the fucking point,
What's the point?
right?
It's just it's a showpiece. It's like a designer pet, you know? It's like
Yeah,
those genetically
This
modified fish with that glow
it's
in the
just not
dark.
the best use of the technology.
Yeah.
Like the cane toad thing. That's a good use of the technology, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
That's
Like if you
a
could actually bring
valuable
back the
result.
mammoth and it could go to the fucking permafrost, and it could live up in northern Russia where nothing good's gonna happen anyway, and it could fucking eat off the ground and stare to the sky. Fucking awesome. Poachers would kill it, is what would just happen. But imagine that didn't happen. That sounds great, but I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't trust these sons of bitches really.
Yeah, they've kind of there's a couple like they've done things that have kind of eroded my trust in them. Like I will admit they're doing significant research. This is significant research, but they have a tendency to exaggerate and misrepresent
Yeah,
a
and
little
with
bit.
great power comes great responsibility, man. Like you want to be able to fuck with genes, like you need to be respectable.
Yeah.
And I understand you want money, and I don't begrudge that. Shit costs money. Um, yeah, get attention for the shit you do, but be serious. Like you're
Mhm.
not being serious. You're tech broing about this tech, and it makes people doubt it. And like I want people to be excited.
Well,
You know?
yeah, and it's just making me feel like NFTs or something like that, you know?
Yeah,
Like
that's what they
when I
act in.
see these tech bros and like, yeah, and the type of stuff that the president of Colossal or CEO, whatever he is posting on his Twitter account, I'm like, oh, oh, come on, come on. Yeah. Where you're right that like and that kind of tech bro culture has a tendency to over exaggerate like, oh my gosh, like solar roadways and stuff. Like, you remember that
Fucking
shit?
solar roadways,
Solar
dude. Jesus
roadways
Christ.
and Hyperloop and like those failed projects where there's like and I got in an argument with my parents about like my parents were like Elon Musk is a really smart guy and I was like well it's um like no like these tech bros really don't know science and they seemingly don't have scientists actually talk back to them, you know, and actually explain what's realistic and what's unrealistic. So and maybe that's good, maybe that's so they can just dump their money on these projects. um because if yeah, if they understood what they're actually contributing to, maybe they wouldn't be paying money to it and investing in it. I don't know. It's just annoying. It's just kind of annoying to me, but I guess everybody needs funding. Like the Chicken Saurus got
Well,
funding.
like, look, this is a bit of a fallacious thing to say, but I'm gonna say it because I'm feeling petty.
Yeah.
Like, the guy fucking follows Louis, fucking Alonso on fucking Twitter, the UFO bullshit guy.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You
You
know,
know exactly the type of stuff he probably believes in and everything. Like I
Yeah,
don't
so
know.
I'm
You
saying,
see
like,
acts,
like
you know.
I mean, you follow that fucking idiot, and I'm telling. So I have nothing nice to say about the guy. The guy's a liar. The guy's not smart. The guy just fucking spreads misinformation about UFOs in a time when misinformation is causing massive threats to Enlightenment values in Western society. So
Yeah.
I got no fucking sympathy, or I'm not interested to be nice about it. Like, it's just bullshit. Like, the guy
Yeah.
follows fucking Donald Trump Jr. on Twitter. Like, I don't like fuck. It's stupid. I don't like this
Oh
guy.
yeah.
Like, some of the science is good, but I don't trust these people, and they're dishonest. Like, hype it up a little bit, man. Cool, but like it's a trick. It's a parlor trick. It's taking real science and it's turning into a parlor trick, and that's what sucks, right?
Yeah.
Because like
Yeah.
people are
It
doing
hurt.
legit stuff.
It's like hurting what they like. Yeah. It's like when you tell half truths. You know that half truths are kind of more or worse than an outright lie sometimes. Sometimes, like where you're just like it just confuses everything now, Um, and there was no need. There was no need to kind of and maybe they felt they had a need to get all this because this did get a whole bunch of attention the way that they phrased it. So maybe they did win in the end, and they were getting a whole
Oh, they
bunch
did. We're
of
talking about it.
yeah,
But it sucks, because like you learned this stuff, you worked on this stuff. These people are doing legit things, and
yeah,
and, and they're taking the well earned respect of science and its seriousness and its production and its ability to transform and understand the cosmos like nothing else, and it's turning it into something that is PR maneuvering, is rhetorical.
yeah,
It is, and
yeah,
that is demystifying the most powerful thing that we've ever created, which is
yes.
this methodology, and that fundamentally sucks ass.
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
And
it does. Yeah.
so
Yeah, like, it's a kind of I think it's a part of having to have science exist in a capitalist system, I guess, I don't know. It
I don't
eventually turns
personally
into
blame
money.
capitalism, but
Marketing or something whatever, however you wanna
yeah,
phrase it.
whatever, yeah,
Like, they have like, things need to be sexy and for them to get like, because yeah, that's the thing is, I worked in a lab that did, Evo Devo stuff, like, stuff about evolutionary development and genes contributing to, like, where limbs are placed on the body and stuff in mice. Um, but and that project got funding through Chickenosaurus, something that's
yeah.
totally unrelated, barely connected at all in the site besides like the fact that yeah, like it's kind of evolutionary development stuff. But like you like the lab that I worked at kind of like had to be like, yeah, Chickenosaurus project, sure, yeah, that'll work or something like that to get some funding. So like maybe that's kind of maybe I'm too cynical and like I don't know.
Well,
Chickenosaurus was stupid.
they've had to do this whenever like anyone wants to like look into the ecology of the fucking loch and Loch Ness.
Oh
They always
yeah.
got to be like, oh yeah, maybe we'll find a fucking plesiosaur,
Yeah.
fucking jack off, blah blah blah. It's and it just sucks, man. It
Yeah.
sucks.
Maybe it's like, yeah, maybe you have to play the game a little bit to get funding. Maybe you have to pander to these check bro guys to get money and it just sucks. I understand it to a certain extent. It just kind of sucks that like you have to misrepresent your work and exaggerate what you're doing and play with these definitions. I don't know. I felt so bad for Dr. Beth Shapiro when she was like having to go on camera and like I kind of got the impression that she like was having to say like she had been kind of given a little bit of a script and they explicitly got her to record that in response to all the people on Twitter or
Yeah,
whatever.
it does feel
Um,
like that.
yeah, and I'm like,
Well,
oh, that's
anyways,
yes.
my final word on these fucking dogs is that they're not direwolves. You can't really defend that they're direwolves. We don't know what direwolves fucking looked at or acted like that much. We have some information. We're gaining more information. Proper published science is how you get that. Not flashy press conferences with a guy who can't finish a fucking book. That shit. That shit ain't gonna fly. You look like a Looney Tune doing this, and cut it out. That's my final word on the matter.
Oh, what time is
Anyways,
it? Yeah, what time
uh,
is it now, Miles?
oh, hold on, real quick. We got a fan mail we got to answer
Oh, we
from.
got fan mail. Sorry,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. We got a bunch of fan mail last episode. Actually, people loved the last episode. So thanks all of our new listeners.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
yeah. Anyone who's new, this is kind of a ranty episode. If this is your second episode you're listening to, so welcome to the show. But on Patreon, I'm gonna try to say this guy's name right, but it's crazy. It's Urib. Um, he's our new Patreon, and he said, "Hi y'all. Just saw your recorded podcast tomorrow, and was wondering if you could answer this question. Are you familiar with the 2010 Action Bible? It's a hardcover comic novel that recounts the most famous and interesting biblical stories in a PG-13 way instead of R-rated. Laugh out loud. I read it front and back as a kid and thought it had great art, but now feel dubious about the historicity of some of these drawings. Curious your guys' thoughts on it, or if you're
Oh,
just fancying it too
I'm
hard."
when you told me about this, I was mixing this up with the Bible manga. I was
Oh yeah,
Bible. I went into a Hobby Lobby years ago and saw this Action Bible there and flick through it and stuff. It wouldn't surprise me if this is. I'm gonna just look at a couple pictures in it if this is very historically inaccurate, especially with the Old Testament stuff. How can you make some of the stuff in Genesis, like, historically accurate and everything? Like, I was
well,
talking to my mom
just
about
pray and ask God.
I was talking to my mom about how like whenever you see a depiction of Abraham with a camel or something, it's like nope, the camels weren't domesticated yet. They just didn't have them. The camels are really recent domestication, and so all those images of Abraham with a leading a camel or whatever are not accurate. But also
So
you
yeah,
get into
I
conversations about
of course like, I work comics and I've seen this at Comic Cons and stuff like in the graphic novel like bin before, and I flipped
Mhm.
through it. I've never read the whole thing, I used to like Trey. We both used to be very religious, and I was kind of like a
Yeah.
Bible apologist for a long time. So I probably have a lot of thoughts on any particular scholarship. Although I don't argue about it and deal with it as much as I used to, like maybe in my 20s, so I'm not like as sharp as I was. But yeah, I'm sure a lot of it is pretty inaccurate and based on kind of like the way Christians were telling the story in the 70s and 80s. Like you notice a lot of Exodus storytelling is based on the Ten Commandments movies more than like on a
Oh,
strict
this
reading of Exodus.
Yeah,
So,
I'm looking at this right now. This is a panel with Goliath, and he's wearing a linothorax,
hmm
which did not exist at the time. Linothorax is, like linothorax is the cotton like cuirass, like armor, body armor
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
Greeks would wear. Like you see it in the one of the most famous pictures of it is the Alexander mosaic, where he's on the horse and he's doing like the
hmm
side pose. Um, yeah, this is not accurate. Linothorax didn't exist yet. Philistines would probably not be wearing them. Um,
They made toys for this.
I mean, the art's fine. It's
It's
nothing
fine. It's pretty
exceptional.
much of the
The
era.
color
It's
palette's kind of crap. I think I don't know.
coloring's not great personally.
Coloring's not great.
But I
Um,
do like the Noah action figure. I could go for a Noah action figure. It comes with some animals, not two by two
they
though. So I don't know if it's. I don't know.
they made Adam and Eve white. Come on. Don't make. Oh, I guess it really doesn't matter. you know.
They gotta be
Um,
some fucking color. Who knows?
make him black or something. Yeah, make him black. At least that'll be somewhat closer to like actual evolution. That
a
our
lot of
ancestors are
a
dark
lot
skinned.
of. I was told that Ham was black.
Yes, yeah, the Ark wow, there's some people like to think that Cam was black. The Ark Encounter, I did a whole bunch of research about Kin Ham and the Ark
Ham
Encounter.
is one of Noah's sons. If people
One
don't
of
know.
Noah's sons, where
Yeah.
the Ark Encounter does all of Noah's sons are like white, or
Yeah.
whatever, light skinned, whatever you want to say, and all their wives is where they get so one of the wives is Asian. She looks Asian. One of the wives kind of looks black. One of the wives looks like Indian, Pakistani, kind of like they intentionally made like the Ark Encounter was like, there's a problem here. We need there to be different ethnic groups and diversity within like a couple of years of the Ark landing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like they gave it to all the wives, because the wives are not mentioned. The wives are just kind of, they don't even have names, I think, in
One of them
Genesis.
is Emma Watson.
Emma Watson, yeah, they give it to Emma Watson,
Yeah.
because yeah, you can just make shit up with the sons of Noah's wives.
You can just make shit
But
up with
yes,
the Bible. What the fuck?
you're right though, Miles. There's some interpretations that Ham
Yeah.
was black and stuff. Yeah.
There's no real valid reason to do any of this. Of
No,
course.
no, no, no. Yeah,
And
no.
like the whole Exodus story is largely made up, if not entirely made up.
What is this
Regardless,
creature you just sent me? What is this
I don't
creature
know.
in the
It's in the
book?
fucking book though.
I'm
Maybe
trying to
that's
figure out what this
Behemoth.
even would. Oh, this is like the Revelation, like the
Oh, it
thing
could
with
be.
the horns, like the beast from the sea, and it had
Okay,
70
yeah, yeah.
horns or whatever, like that just s- uh, you know the crazy bullshit of Revelation, where it's just a guy tripping out and just
Yeah.
saying random shit. um the goat had 4 horns, and it smashed into another goat, and 3 horns erupted from it, and like adults will devote their whole entire lives to like figuring out what this means and stuff, where it probably didn't mean anything. Probably meant
See,
something
they
to
should
somebody.
devote their lives to understanding the backstory of everybody in the Jabba Palace band. That's what I have fucking done, and
Yeah.
it's a much more rewarding pursuit, both personally and to society, than deciding like who did what in this fucking book. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I think you ever watch the YouTube channel, the Mighty Jabba's Collection?
No.
Oh,
I
it's
try
great.
not
It's
to
a
look at
guy.
any Star Wars stuff on YouTube, to be honest with you.
No. He's great. It's a man that's obsessed with Jabba's palace, and he collects memorabilia from
Okay,
every
that's cool.
character, and he has he has a spotlight like every now and then like he has like this today's spotlight is Max Rebo or like whatever or like a Camel Man or Camel Face or whatever,
The
and he'll like talk about the development of Camel Face and
some of these
all
guys
his.
bring up DSW stuff, and it ruins it for me. So that's why I can't.
No,
But
he is solely like, he doesn't talk about any of the new Star Wars at all, he
okay,
literally just talks about Jabba's palace,
sounds like a good man.
and, like, he's like, "Yes, this is Yasm, you can see him in this scene, there are 3 frames that you can see him in and stuff." Let me see if I can find it, and he just I don't know, he's a very adorable man, I don't know, let me see if I can find it, The Mighty Java's Collection, uh, this
Uh,
is Regal Robots, like, yeah.
can I say it's just fucking real rich that Forrest Gallant is involved in all this shit?
Oh, yeah, he's been having a lot of bad luck lately, just ending up in everything that's, yeah, yeah.
So, wait,
'Cause, yeah,
where's that fucking thylacine email and shit?
yeah,
How's that
I
fucking going?
I said I wouldn't talk about it, but it's been over a year since we had that little kerfuffle
Yeah, I
with,
mean, like,
Isaac.
yeah, were you being a little extra? Sure, but were you right?
I was so
Yes,
right. I was
that's the
so
thing.
right that, like,
Like, yeah,
he was such bullshitting there.
you were being sassy, Trey. You were being a little sassy,
I was just
but you
getting
were
pissed off 'cause he
fucking
was
right. You
I
were
was fucking
fucking
right.
right.
'Cause, yeah,
So
it's been, over a year, that was in February 2024, it's been a year and 2 months, almost 3, since he talked about that jaw photo, and he's like, "Oh, I'm talking to the people,
uh,
I'm talking to them to release the photo," and you know what? He hasn't talked about it, and since.
why would he be working with Colossal to spend fucking $100 million
Oh,
to
yeah.
take some marsupial and put stripes on its back and call it a thylacine?
That
When
apparently,
you could
exists in Papua New Guinea according to him, and
go there for $1 million. He was
he
going to raise $2 million. Get two
he was
million from fucking them.
I think it was 5. I think it was 5.
Whatever. It's
It
not
was
100 million.
he was asking for $5 million or something like that, like, or okay, he walked himself back, I think, he's like, I would need $5 million," like, in a
Sure. Yeah, he did
you
kind of
know,
walk himself back a
in
bit. So yeah.
a passive way, and then when I talked to researchers who actually went into that region, like, like that guy remember do you remember that video where they discovered that what they thought was an extinct bird species, and they caught it on,
Yeah.
like, a trail cam, and
Yeah.
they, like, freaked out? I emailed, the guy taking that video, not Daka, which is the guy that was on the camera, but the guy behind the camera who's another scientist, and he was like, that's ridiculous that he's asking for $5 million. Like, that trip was like 5,000. Like he's like that expedition where we found that bird. Yeah, that was like $5,000, and it was like through my university and stuff. Like him asking for 5 million is insane. Like, I don't know where that money would be going to. Um, which is makes me question Forrest's motives and stuff, like why ask for such a high number? Like, it's almost like you don't want to do it. You don't want to get the funding, so you're just gonna ask for a really high number. I could go on. Oh my gosh, I've been sitting on this for a year. Oh boy.
Yeah. Um. Anyway, uh, so that's one fucking dog story.
Mhm.
We got an even worse one coming up right now, Trey. It's time for fucking what?
Monster Quest.
Witnesses around the world report seeing monsters. Are they real or imaginary? Science searches for answers on Monster Quest.
Also, I'm cussing a lot in this episode because I'm drinking a Mountain Dew
No, me
Kickstart.
too.
So we're fucking vibing at the end of the day, and whatever. Anyway, Trey. Last episode we were much more pointive and researched, but that sometimes the show Trey and I sometimes get very detailed. We talk about all the little facts. We're like, man, we know everything about the story. We looked up the things, and sometimes we're like, man, this shit's kind of stupid. We're just gonna vibe on the thing, and so that's the show. Um, anyways, this is the Monster Quest portion of the show. Bad news, everyone. This is the worst episode of the whole show.
This is the most depressing episode of the entire series.
Hate it. Not even gonna talk about
It,
that long. This
yeah,
is this is the real Cujo, is what it's called. Cujo, Stephen King novel about big mean dog. He gonna bite you. And this is when Monster Quest goes out and they look at like some feral dogs running in like depressed parts of America that are poverty stricken because of probably because of racism, to be honest. Uh,
yeah. They
Parts of
go
the country,
explicitly to St. Louis and Detroit, and
yeah.
I
See what I'm
went to
saying?
s I visited St. Louis last year, and I
Were you
get
bit
it.
by a dog?
I no, I was not bit by a dog, but I saw what they were talking about where it is a city you can it's one of those cities where you can tell its population used to be bigger and it shrunk. Like
Yeah.
it's like seeing like like Roman Empire, like Rome in the Middle Ages where you're like people
Hmm.
are like living in the shadow of their own greatness and stuff. It's kind of crazy. Yeah. I did not get bit by a dog though. um
So basically, this episode is like there are lots of wild dogs in these kind of half depopulated parts of the cities. They are not being controlled. They are forming like packs. They may or may not be biting and hurting people on occasion. What is going on with these dogs? They talk to a guy, and the guy's like, "Yep, they're a bunch of dogs. I'm worried about them." And then they go
yeah.
into a building where the dogs are going to be.
Like, yeah, the monster okay, people, the monster of the week here is just feral dogs, and, like,
Yeah, it's just feral dogs.
and they're not even really feral dogs, some of them are just stray dogs, like, some
Yeah,
of them are because when they were doing like, they don't do much in this episode, folks, okay? They're like they go into, like a kind of depressed area, abandoned houses, abandoned neighborhoods and stuff, and just kinda walk around and throw a whole bunch of food on the ground and wait for kinda
grab some
dogs to come out.
domestic dog poop and put it in bags.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And even like the dogs that they were trying to trap that were feral dogs apparently were relatively friendly. Like they were like walking up to the
Yeah, they're
humans and
still
stuff.
domesticated
Yeah,
dogs.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
Um, yeah. So yeah, what? Yeah. So there
I
and
don't
like the,
have much to say
I don't
about
have much
this
to
one,
say.
Trey.
Like yeah, that like I let me see what I wrote in my notes here. I said the most depressing Monster Quest episode. Depressing locations. Abandoned dogs. Shows straight up dog fight footage. Like
Yeah,
it's not it was a very depressing episode. And this one's one of the few that is not on YouTube, so I had to watch it on
yeah.
Amazon
I
Prime.
sat
And
down to write notes, and I started messaging you like Trey. Is like, shit, man, this one makes me feel bad.
this is a bit yeah, because they start talking about like how dogs were used to like hunt slaves and stuff. You're
Yeah,
like,
and I
this
was like, what
fucking
the fuck? I mean,
sucks.
like, you could bring that up in historical context, but like, you just like casually mention it.
Like, why
It's
did we
like,
bring that and then, like yeah, and then they talk about, like, a male woman who was, like, mauled doing her job. Um, a whole bunch of really sad stories about people dying in, like, dog attacks, um, like kids and old people and stuff, but, like, the thing is those were not, like some of those weren't even, like, feral dogs, those are just, like, dogs on somebody's property that were mistreated or not
yeah, the
disciplined or something,
pit
yeah.
bulls and stuff, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, yeah, and so, like, the real Cujo is the name of this episode. Yeah, they don't have much. Like, I don't even know what the point of like. I guess okay. The premise is it was one of the invasion episodes. Like how they were doing like the
yeah,
jellyfish invasion, where like,
oh
oh
yeah, that
my
was a
god,
great one.
the feral dogs are taking over. Like they're gradually taking over the world, and it's like the attacks are more and more increasing each year and stuff like that. Like the kind of alarmist things.
Which I don't know if there's much
I
evidence
don't
of
know if
that,
that's
but
true. I think it's probably it's probably plateau. Like I don't know if dog populations are necessarily increasing or anything, or they're getting more aggressive. Um, like I have firsthand experience with like feral dog packs, and when I was in Mississippi, we encountered a whole bunch of. They're not like the thing is they're not really feral. Like they technically have owners, but the owners let them like wander the countryside for like miles. Like they just let them they let them free range like how like wolves would free range, where they just go into the woods and run around and then come back for dinner, or come back for food, and then leave again. Um, and yeah, yeah, I saw it like when we were staying in the middle of nowhere in Mississippi, the owner of the property had a whole bunch of dogs that like they would wander for like we would drive into town and then the dogs would be in town and stuff wandering around and be like, how did they walk all the way here? Like, and it was like a 30-minute drive. Like, it was crazy. Anyways, um, yeah. They're out there. Like, yeah, there's feral animals, like how there's feral cats and stray cats and stuff, and there's populations of them, but I don't know if they're necessarily taking over. I don't know if like they're invading the ecosystem even either. I know cats are like killing a lot of birds and stuff, but I think like dogs, like they're killed by coyotes and bears and
According
stuff.
to the CDC, dog bites were at their highest in the year 2021. So I don't, you
Really?
know,
Okay, maybe. Okay, damn, Monster Quest was onto something.
there it kind of goes up and down. Of course, most deadly bites are by pit bulls, but pit bulls aren't that a big enough number to be most bites according to the CDC data. You know, I don't know. There's a whole bunch of politics about that too.
Yeah, I'm
I don't
looking
really
at
want to
this.
get
I'm looking
into.
at this graph right now, and it kind of looks like maybe there's
It,
a slight, but there's not enough data. Like,
Yeah,
well,
so
what
say
is causing
it's
that
all
slight
kind of
increase?
fuzzy, and also it's just a terrible episode of Monster Quest. And then they like go try to get one of these dogs, and they try to put a collar on it, and they can't even put the fucking collar on it.
The
They're like, "We
collar's
have
too
this high tech
big.
collar. It's like an $8,000 collar. It's going to track the dog and tell us about dogs because no one knows anything about dogs in this country with a fucking million dogs." And then like they sedate this poor fucking creature that really just give him some food, and then like they sedate him, they put the collar on it, and then these fucking dinguses didn't put it on right, and it gets the collar off in literally 3 seconds. And then
Yeah,
like it's gone.
it shakes it off,
And
and
they're
then
left
they
holding a bag of poop to analyze, and that's the end of the episode.
no, and then they try to trap another one, get the collar on,
Right.
and drug the dog another time, and it's like terrified and scared. And then the collar doesn't automatically fall off, like it was supposed to have like a mechanism that it falls off automatically, and then that apparently didn't work. So they have to like recapture the dog, and they have to like hunt for it in the woods, and then try to capture it, and they literally capture the whole entire pack until they get the right one, and then they take the color off. They draw DNA. This was like the one thing that was mildly interesting is that they got the DNA of this stray dog to see like, okay, what it was its ancestry, and it had like terrier and German Shepherd,
Who
Alaskan
gives a
Malamute,
shit, right?
Chow Chow. Like, it
It's
was just like random shit
okay.
because this is a dog that's not like a purebred, so of course it's just gonna have random shit in it. Um,
Um,
yeah.
real quick, Trey. So this is guess what this is on the whole ranking. Yeah, I'm getting to this part because
Um,
I don't even want to talk about this episode anymore.
yeah, let's just fucking stop talking about
Yeah, no,
it.
nothing fucking happened of consequence. It sucks to watch. I don't recommend you watch it. We're doing this because it's our fucking show. We got to complete every
Yeah,
episode.
for completionist sake,
Yeah.
we have to finish every episode.
So
Like,
guess
oh
where
my
this
gosh,
is ranked?
even the guys in the episode were like embarrassing. Like, there was the guy that
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, that dog was definitely like he was like acting like he was like this wildlife tracker, and he was like just shitty. Like, he just didn't even know what he was doing. Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah. Okay,
Okay.
what is this episode ranked out
Yeah.
of what? Let's see,
Remember,
out of
it's out of
10 or
68. It's out of 68.
this is gonna be like 60, 67.
Okay. It's 31.
That's bullshit. What do
It's
you mean
ranked
this is
above the
31?
last dinosaur, the McKelly Mbembe, and
How
below
how
giant killer bee. I know, dude. Fuck these people.
how
Plastic Plesiosaur podcast listeners. Right.
democracy sucks. Democracy
so,
doesn't work.
so we asked you to make Killer Jellyfish the bottom ranked episode, and you guys came through. But
Yeah,
now's the time to make Killer Jellyfish the second worst episode of the rankings
yeah,
because this episode where they're kind of mean to dogs and it's
yeah.
sad.
It legitimately, like, it's a sad episode. Like, we're like, you're right. It's even worse than any other episode before. Where like they kind of hurt animals for
Yeah,
for nothing, they got really no information out of this.
straight up not a
Um,
fan of anything that I
and they
saw.
traumatize these poor animals for nothing. Yeah.
Um, so pay attention to the other dog story today about the fucking canids that we kind of made that are just basically they're not even a subspecies of the direwolf. They're just direwolves. I don't even think you can call
They're
them
gray
subspecies.
wolves.
Oh
Gray
yeah,
wolves.
gray wolves. Gray wolves. Gray wolves. Sorry, you know what I was saying. But like
Yeah,
they're not
yeah,
really a
yeah.
subspecies of gray wolf, right? They're just gray wolves. Like I
Yeah.
don't think it's enough genetic difference to be a species, really.
No, and actual geneticists agree with you on that. Like,
Yeah,
there's a couple that came
you know,
out to speak about it.
obviously
Um,
not an expert. Go listen to the experts, but I do know a little bit about the direwolf. 4 years ago I knew a lot more, but yeah,
Yeah,
I
and our
lose
knowledge
shit in my
together,
mind.
like
But
when
yeah,
people are like complaining about my tweets or whatever, they're like, "Oh, are you an expert?" And it's like, well, like I did my bachelor's in this,
yeah.
and I've like worked in a lab adjacent to this. Like I know more than the average person.
Look, I'm a few
Um,
steps away from an expert for sure, but I'm a pretty big leap away from an idiot. You know, a lot of people talking about this are a lot closer to that. So, um, next episode though,
Next episode is a good one. I actually enjoy
terror
this one.
from the skies.
Air from the
Monst-
skies rocks.
Monster Quest goes to Mexico to investigate the phenomenon of unidentified flying humanoids. Fuck yes. Fuck yes.
This
I
is
hope that they
great.
use the yellow Breaking Bad Mexican filter, which I mean,
Oh my god. Okay, yeah. This is gonna be because I remember watching this episode. In this episode, the one of the subjects kind of came back up recently. I saw it in like a YouTube video, and I was like, "Oh, that's from the episode." I don't know. I love it. Oh, it's
yeah.
good. Terror.
So thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry we kind of phoned in the Monster Quest thing, but you don't want us to talk about that anymore. I
Yeah,
promise you,
you
it's terrible.
look, listen, like you guys, like you would thank us if you knew if you had watched this episode. This episode sucks. Like if this episode was lost, like lost media, nobody would mourn it. Like if
No,
somebody found it, like this is the lost Monster Quest episode.
we're doing the
Um,
right thing. You can trust us.
you can trust us. This one sucked.
Um, but yeah, there are more people out there talking more specific about like the actual genes they added and how they added it. If you want to learn that stuff, I've thought about bringing that up, but there are people that have a little more expertise to talk about that. So, if you want to learn more, learn more. Like I say, Colossal's not the big bad guy in the world, but they're kind of doofuses, and I don't really like them, sadly, because I want to, but can't
They
trust them.
kind of have bad
So,
practices, in my opinion.
yeah,
Yeah, a little
yeah.
unprofessional practices.
And if you want this kind of power, if you want this kind of money, you got to be trustworthy. If you
Yeah.
want to do science, you got to be trustworthy, and they're not. And I think that's a bad thing. But it was good to talk to you, Trey. Have a
Yeah.
lot of fun on your trip. I'll get this out in the next few days. Thank you to our Patreon backers, all the new people that came from Trey's comment on YouTube. Thanks for listening to the show. Check out our back catalog. We talk about all kind of weird things and history and stuff. And now I have tomorrow off because of Catholicism, apparently.
Oh hell yeah.
So that's good. I'm gonna stay up all night and play Kingdom Hearts. So,
Sweet.
all right. Goodbye, buddy.
Goodbye, Miles. Goodbye, everybody.
That's what chemicals can do. He thought he'd have a beer, thought he was alone. He thought an Albertson stir-fried dinner would make his apartment a home. Bottoms up this time. Won't you let me be bottled up this time? Won't you rescue me? Should have been there last night and heard what the Big Dipper said to me. I thought I bored me, but I learned to think like you. Now nothing bores me, that's that nothing is thought through. And bottoms up in this time. Won't you let me be bottled